morning, everyone. Welcome to TTPK Talk Startup episode Classroom episode 17. Today, we've got a topic of Masterclass product market fit for startup e-commerce. So today, we've got a very special guest from Stripe, Ms. Sarita Singh, Regional Head and Managing Director of Southeast Asia, Stripe. All right. Would you mind introduce yourself a little bit, Sarita?
Sawadee ka. Thank you so much, Kunsai, and to everybody watching. I'm Sarita Singh, and I'm based here in Singapore, but I've been covering businesses of all sizes throughout my 25 plus year career across Asia Pacific. So a little bit about me. Like I said, 25 years in tech, but tech has changed so much in the last couple of decades, and I've had the great fortune of covering all sorts of tech from large-scale enterprise software through to consumer segments. And I've had a variety of different roles across sales, marketing, and operations. And something that I'm very passionate about in tech is, I am an advocate for startups and SMBs, and especially for diversity in the tech industry.
Cool. This is very interesting. So would you mind telling us more about Stripe?
Sure. Really happy to do so. So for those of you who may not know Stripe, we are a financial infrastructure platform that supports businesses of all sizes, from the most nascent startups all the way through to some of the biggest companies in the world. And today, about 70% of our current top 100 global users started on Stripe when they themselves were startups. So what do we do? You might be asking. Stripe provides an end-to-end platform designed to help businesses easily collect, move, disperse, and track money movement. So just stop for a minute and think about how complex these processes can be for really any business. The ability to accept payments, pay out to third parties, maybe moving money across borders, managing fraud, revenue recognition, accounting for tax. I mean, these are the most common processes that businesses really have to undertake. And when you layer on different business models, that could be B2B, B2C, B2B2C, the list goes on, different kinds of business models, we get lots and lots of complexity happening, and the multiples of that complexity continue to increase as businesses change their business models. So what we do at Stripe is to extract away all of that complexity and make it really easy for businesses to grow and to adapt with our financial infrastructure.
Wow, this is very interesting. So how do you define product market fit?
Oh, that's a really good question. So simply put, product market fit means being in a good market with a product that can really satisfy that market's needs, right? So if we think about why that's important, the product market fit concept was originally coined and developed by Andy Rachleff, where he said the only thing that matters for a new startup is getting to product market fit. And if we break that concept down, there are three main components. Number one is the product itself. Two is the team that you have. And three are the market components to it. And, as you can see in the well-known CB Insights report on the top 20 reasons that startups fail, the number one reason is no market need. And so product market fit can mean different things to different founders, right? We all know that, and we have a slightly different expectation or experience of that. But so much of the venture capital ecosystem is built around three main concepts. In early stage funding, it's designed to help founders get their companies to product market fit, right? That's what early stage funding is about. Investors at the early stage are really looking for a company to demonstrate progress toward product market fit. And after a certain point, usually by Series A, a company that can't demonstrate some progress towards product market fit will seriously struggle to raise venture capital. So for founders, this process is never linear. It's quite iterative, and it varies depending on the scale of the product initiative and the shape of the product. And you can always feel when, say, product market fit isn't quite happening. It's not quite gelling. Customers aren't quite getting value out of the product. Word of mouth is not spreading. Usage isn't growing very fast. Say your press reviews are kind of mediocre or lukewarm, the sales cycle can take too long, and lots of deals never close. These are all signals about when product market fit isn't happening. And so for today's masterclass session, I really want to focus on 3 distinct components that are related to product market fit. The first is shaping your product strategy, shaping your product definition, and the UX research that is required to do so.
Oh, okay. This is very let's go for the first one. So how do you shape your product strategy?
Good question, right? A question that I get asked very, very often. So let's talk about the first component. A key question in shaping anyone's product strategy is how do you map all of the pots of treasure as well as the valleys of death? Sadly, there's no super easy way of doing that. Otherwise, we'd all be running our own successful businesses. However, one big element is the rate of learning. So think about how quickly you are shipping your solutions to market, learning, and iterating. In this section, we're going to dive a little bit into what constitutes a product strategy doc. Essentially, your product strategy doc has to outline broadly what space you're operating in and how you expect to win. And sometimes we think about this in how you hit the treasure whilst avoiding falling into those death traps. And so what makes a great product strategy? I think there are a couple of main things. The best one is attuned to the specific context of the market and thinking of a strategy as more of a compass to the journey, not a navigation system with a step-by-step set of directions.
Wow, this is a very interesting fact. So can you share some more example?
Sure, let me do that. So I'm going to walk you through the elements of shaping a product strategy with a specific Stripe product example. So around 4 years ago, we started thinking about our strategy for a product called Terminal. And Terminal, for those of you who may not know, is a set of developer tools and pre-certified card readers and cloud-based hardware, which enables organizations to build their own in-person checkout and unify the online and offline channels. Right? It's a really common challenge that we see with e-com and even retail. I think it's worth adding some key stats about the success of the product as well. It's now a really important business line for Stripe, and we've seen really great traction, and it's one we're hoping to grow more and more across this region and globally. We can particularly point to a number of strong use cases. One, for example, is Castlery, which is a furniture retailer in Singapore, which uses Terminal mostly, not just in Singapore, but also as it drives expansion into overseas markets. I also went to a local cafe recently, and it was quite cool, me geeking out when I saw Terminal in the wild. It's because of this magic that we do as entrepreneurs. We turn the ideas that we have into really tangible things. So I want to use Terminal as an example and share a little bit as we go through this masterclass using Terminal as the example to show you how we've thought about it. So first, let's take a look at the summary of our product strategy. Ultimately, what the summary needs to do is to help us crystallize our idea. What does this product do? Who does it serve? Right? And it may not be easy to come up with that first up, so that we can spend a lot of time actually crystallizing these ideas, and it can be surprisingly difficult to keep concise. But just that process of thinking about what is it that we do, who do we serve, helps us with that iterative process of focusing our efforts. And it's more likely to result in a much clearer next step. Then we'll take a look as a next step into market assessment. So you have to start with some kind of a hypothesis. And the reason we need a hypothesis is that we need to be able to reevaluate that hypothesis as we continue to iterate with our product. So I encourage you to come up with a segmentation framework that makes sense for your business. So think about populating segmentation or in quadrants like this with both the opportunities you have as well as the prospective users. From the Stripe Terminal example, before we got to customer segmentation, we did some thinking around who are all the people that this could possibly be relevant for. Then we broke them down not by generic segmentations such as customer size or industry vertical, but by needs and key distinguishing features. Obviously, it's not super comprehensive at this stage, and often what you'll find is that most entities will sit somewhere on this continuum, right? So don't think of it as strategically a user will fit into either one of these boxes. It's somewhere in this spectrum. Next, I would encourage you to think about forcing yourself to prioritize these segments. Based on the number of customers and how fast they're growing, market sizing is really important at this stage. But also think about whether your product can meet the needs of those customers, and if there are existing products in the market which your users can choose from. How are you able to differentiate and improve the experience? And just remember that not all ideas need to be brand new. They can be improvements on things that currently exist. We've seen some fantastic examples of where companies haven't really developed something that is hugely innovative. Rather, they have improved and iterated on existing market ideas and been very, very successful in the process. So then think about the distribution advantage. So with Stripe Terminal, for example, we already had some success with Stripe Connect, and we really have to ask ourselves, all of us as entrepreneurs, do we already have, say, unique relationships that others cannot easily duplicate? And how else can you take your product to market? Understanding who your competition is, how you can win or compete against them, that's the next step. We need to make sure that we take the hyperbole away, though, right? Often we are super passionate about the solutions and the products that we're bringing to market, but we need to be able to objectively look at our product and truly identify the strengths and the weaknesses relative to the competition. And remember, being objective is super important, and hope is not a strategy. We cannot hope that our product does what we need it to do, right? We need to be able to use the data and use objective problem solving when we're at this stage. And then the last bit here is really about sizing the market. And often one thing that we all talk about is this concept of total addressable market. But I just want to caution everybody when it comes to total addressable market. That is one metric. Total addressable market is really about the size of the prize that we can go after. But there are other factors that we need to think about. We also need to think about our product in terms of the right to play. Do we have the minimum viable product to meet the market's needs? And the right to win. What makes our product stand out? What allows us to differentiate? So TAM is a good starting point, but then also think about the right to play and the right to win. So let's delve a little bit deeper into differentiation. Always ask yourself, where is the value being created and how is that value being created? Then make it better with your product. And how does your product actually do that? And then the third thing to think about is what existing products, assets, advantages can you leverage to drive monetization? And that monetization, can you do it faster or how do you do it in a differentiated way? So coming back to the example of Stripe Terminal, some of you might be thinking, yeah, but there are so many different POS systems available in the market. That's true. However, we were pretty clear on our value proposition. And it's okay that there are segments that your product will not meet the requirements of. But you want to target the segments who really, really love your product and where you have that right to win, right? Where that right to win and that right to play exist. Next, why should your customers care? How many times do we get caught up in this cycle of, but our product is awesome and it meets these requirements. Yay, let's go for it, right? That's great. That's a very outside-in approach. We also need to, a very inside-out approach. We need to think about the other side of it, right? Why should our customers actually care about what we're doing? And we need to ask the question about how does our offering help customers achieve their business metrics? And how will we quantify the impact? And what other value or assets can be created as a result of, say, for example, the network effect, right? Lots of different ways to consider the customer's approach to receiving what we're building.
So let's move on to how do they shape your product definition then?
Yep, a really great question. And it's a core component of the process of defining what product market fit is. So let's take a look. Defining the product, outlining the key considerations. I mean, there's a lot to consider. Here are just some of the questions, right? So what are the key components of the solution that we're offering? How do these components all work together? How do they work with other products in the ecosystem? A really important question is, what are we not going to focus on, right? A lot of us think about all the different solutions that we can drive, but sometimes non-goals, i.e. the things we're not going to focus on, are equally important to the things that we are going to focus on, right? So be crystal clear about the things that you're not going to do. And then any open questions that you have regarding your customers and the execution phase, and then thinking about what the user experience needs to be, right? What do you want it to look like? Lots of different questions that you should be considering as you're defining what your product definition needs to be. And when we think about how we practically do this, right? So these are great considerations, but how? How do you do this? And here are just some of the activities that you might want to consider. Writing user stories, developing user journey maps, UXR testing, UI mocks and prototypes, right? These are really practical examples of how to answer some of the key considerations and get that clarity on your product definition.
So I've got one term of that very question is about UX research. So how do you run the UX research?
Yeah, good question. Look, we all know that UX research is super important. Truly understanding our users, it goes without saying. But how many of us are actually spending the right amount of time or going to the right level of depth in order to do so, right? So let's talk a little bit about some of those ideas. What does it really look like? So the way that this diagram is, laid out looks like it's linear. But remember the diagram I showed you earlier with the looping one, right? As you can see, the process has to be iterative, and it isn't really linear. This is just to describe the individual steps. But these steps don't necessarily happen in this order, right? They happen more like the earlier slide that I showed you, which was a bit more looping. Often, the concept and prioritization could be one phase of the iteration, but then prototype to prioritization. As you learn more and more about, we built this thing, but it's not quite working the way that we wanted it to. And for example, you might see more iteration around beta phase. That's when you've got more customer insights and you're getting the feedback from the market. Lots of parts of this process will require you to go back to prioritization, developing your concepts, and doing that refinement all over again. And whilst this diagram lays it out step by step, we need to be prepared to go back to earlier steps through each of these phases. So these might be the particular components, but we shouldn't be wedded to just having this in a linear approach. And so your question earlier was, the practical steps. How do we do UX? And that's a really good question. There's lots of things that we want to think about. The main way that we do it in order to collect and organize and prioritize our ideas is really through research briefs. Okay, so I think most companies will do some version of this, but they're a great way to synthesize the key components of UX. And these are some of the questions that we want to be able to answer, right, which I mentioned a bit earlier. What are the questions we want to be able to answer? Our hypothesis, etc., can all be documented here so that we can track what parts of the process we do need to iterate on. And so we do this really through different kinds of techniques. We can do interviews and surveys. So this is really getting data from the field, usability tests, card sort, journey mapping, some of the ideas that I mentioned before. There are lots of techniques. I actually encourage everybody to think about how you use multiple techniques, because often you'll find you can go down rabbit holes if you're only using one or two. Ideally, if you have the time and the resources to do so, you'll do all of these. But even if you're just doing more than one or two, that in itself will allow you to test your original hypotheses and check some of the initial data that you get. So these are a number of techniques that we use here at Stripe, and I encourage you to think about how you can incorporate some of these into your processes.
Wow, the component of the market fit and the techniques are very useful. Thanks for sharing. So, can Stripe support e-commerce business?
Thanks. Yeah, it's a good question. E-commerce is really at the core of what we do, and Stripe solutions are centered around the challenges faced by e-commerce businesses. It's how we've grown up. But before I share a little bit more about our solutions, I want to talk a little bit more about what these challenges are. This is what we are seeing in the market. This is what we're hearing from our e-commerce users globally. We're hearing that they want to drive more customers at checkout, where they're just losing far too many. We're hearing that fraud and chargebacks are actually starting to increase, a great deal. There is a fragmented CX, right? Where does customer data live inside an organization, and how do they pull that together in order to make proper decisions? More and more our e-commerce customers are thinking about going cross-border. So how do they enter new markets and do so in a way that they can test that without investing too much? And then, the core to e-commerce, being able to serve customers wherever they are around the world, is around security and reliability, making sure that companies are compliant with the local laws and regulations, and then making sure that they can deliver themselves across their internal teams. Like, how do you take your internal resources and scale them as your businesses expand and evolve, right? This is what we're hearing consistently day after day from our e-commerce players globally. And to your question, Kunzai, is, how does Stripe actually help this? There are a number of ways in which we're able to do this with our e-commerce customers. The first is the use of infrastructure. So businesses build on our infrastructure. So as I mentioned before, they can outsource all of that complexity of running a marketplace or a subscription business, or generally however they want to run their business models. Most people don't want to think about their financial infrastructure. They just need it to work. And that's what we do. And we help companies focus on what they do best so that they can get to market faster and scale up, but do so in a really resource efficient way. The next thing we do is help maximize conversion globally, because we're helping organizations build not just for local domestic solutions, but also as they're thinking about changing business models and scaling across different markets. There's lots of complexity involved in just that process. So we have a full set of tools that will help companies manage and optimize their checkout flows, manage fraud, increase their authorization rates. And there's a variety of ways that we do that. I think what's most important to e-com businesses is that we support 135 currencies. We do local acquiring in more than 40 countries. We offer 50 different payment methods. We enable our customers to quickly expand to new markets and ensure a really good customer experience wherever customers are around the world. We also think about how we embed financial services. So if you're a platform, platforms of all kinds use Stripe to make payments. And financial services is a core part of their product offerings, and we can help increase their stickiness and add new revenue streams. Right? So if you're thinking about how you take your e-com business and morph it more into a platform, there's a lot of ways to embed finance. That means making money from your money, right? And the last is really around modernizing your finance stack, right? If you are a business that's already functioning, etc., there's no doubt that you already have a finance stack. But these can be old, they can be cumbersome, they can be legacy systems. But if you want to morph, change, grow your business, it can be hard to do so if you have a legacy system. So what Stripe does is we enable you to automate manual processes, move faster, do so with fewer resources across, say, your engineering teams, finance teams, your operations teams, all while you're able to expand fast and you get a 360-degree view of your customers. So really, it's about your infrastructure, maximizing your global conversion, embedding financial services, and modernizing your finance stack. That's what Stripe does.
Wow. So so that's very cool. Do you know that Thailand, actually we only got, I think, not more than 10 payment method, really. This is very interesting.
Yeah, it is. And we get a lot of demand. Even what I'm seeing in Thailand with Stripe's business, there's a lot of demand around, I was thinking about going expanding my business in going cross-border, but I don't know how. And it seems really hard. And Stripe, how can you help me do this? So these are a lot of the conversations that we're having with Thai businesses, even if they're thinking about how do I domestically expand through new payment methods, etc. So when we're thinking about growth, this is what Stripe can come and help you with. So I do want to talk about how we do this. And this slide really illustrates how Stripe's products can support e-commerce businesses as they're thinking about that growth. Right. And think of it as a unified platform, right? And it's designed to solve that complexity that we spoke about a little bit earlier, all the money flows that companies need to do, money in, money out, money around through to different partners in the ecosystem. We want to make that really easy. And at the core, we have core payments. And that's something that's pretty basic in what we do. But where our real value add comes is how do you optimize and maximize all of the efficiencies around that money movement. And that's where things like payments optimizations come in, and our revenue operations and all the business solutions that we have. So think about if you're a subscription-based business, right? How do you do recurring billing and you automate that process? That's something that our billing solutions might take care of. Right. And we talked about terminal a little bit before, all right, especially important for e-com businesses who might be thinking of potentially going offline as well. Lots of things that are required that businesses may not have the expertise to do. Businesses don't need to worry because we can take care of that for them to help them grow, but also to make sure that they're growing safely and growing compliantly.
I really love the last one you said, like you take care of everything. So would you mind sharing a successful case of an e-commerce business powered by Stripe?
Sure, happy to do so. One that we are all familiar with, a massive global e-com player, is Shopify, right? So it's one example where Stripe has helped make this particular merchant solution like really successful. And so we've helped Shopify, with its primary source of revenue, overtaking subscription revenue in recent years. And we've helped Shopify scale smoothly. And they've been able to deliver more than 50% year-on-year growth in their payments volume as a result, right? So they have a beautiful platform. And what we've been able to do is to extract away a lot of the complexity that they have through core payments as well as Stripe Connect. And so Shopify really chose to partner with us because they were looking for a partner that was going to help them drive better solutions for their merchants, but also because they are a really innovative company and they move very quickly. They wanted to partner with us because of our product development and being able to keep pace and help them with the innovation that they were trying to lead. And our processes for payments for merchants has really been able to help them scale in the way that I just mentioned. And so when we look at what that's happened, there's real tangible value. We're able to measure and see that, that 50% year-on-year growth is something that we've been able to help them drive. And, we continue to scale this global partnership globally. And we're really pleased to have Shopify as a key partner for us. And they also help to shape our product roadmaps, right, with a lot of input and insights from the merchants that they have on their platform. So, Shopify is just one example of a merchant that we work with. But when it comes to finding solutions for the challenges for e-commerce businesses, there are, a number of different retailers that are really relying on us in the e-com space. And here is just some of them. And I mentioned Castlery before, but you can see whether they're the big global behemoths like, an Amazon or a Shopify, through to some of our, well-loved local players like Castlery and Fashion Valet and J.R. Grocer. It doesn't matter what the company size is, we can help e-commerce businesses do what they need to do, move quickly to monetization, test and iterate new business models and approaches with really tangible, measurable results. And many of these businesses started out with us as small businesses, and we've really helped them to grow, whilst others like Glossier and, as I mentioned, Amazon, they were big already, and we've helped them scale globally. And so, even in Thailand, we look at companies like Kazuno, Hitday, and Chanin, and we've really been able to understand why payments are important, and especially in the Thai context, how we're able to help Thai e-commerce players think about their growth and their development, and bridging that gap between the online and in-person payments and turn one-time purchases into recurring revenue. So there's some of the insights that I have today, Kunsai. Thank you so much for having me here and allowing me to share some of the ideas. And I want to say a big thank you to the True Digital Park team for allowing me to speak. And for those of you who are watching, thank you so much for your time. And I hope some of these tips and tricks are useful. If you do have any questions for Stripe, please feel free to reach out to us via the email or access our website for more information.
Thank you very much as well, Sarita. And Stripe is very well, information and very rich information. I think it will be able to help a lot of startups and e-commerce to, growth and stuff. And also, if those who, watch us already and haven't registered, feel free to register down at the description. You will get, a quick note for you to summarize and your ideas and information that we have, been talking and information. And thank you again, guys. Thank you for watching. And if you have any information, please feel free to contact the Stripe as the description here. All right. Thank you. And see you in the next episode. All right. Bye-bye.